more in this situation than the big bad wolf in the cloak of a sheep, trying to look like the innocent little grandmother, trying to look like the innocent little Red Riding Hood when she knocks on the door the first time to intrude into the house to eat the grandmother. The government is the dangerous one in this situation, and we're allowing them to investigate Facebook for things that the private market can solve itself in the private sector.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV and broadcasting across the entire Mid-American Network. Welcome aboard. Guess what? It's the day you look forward to every single week. It is a Monday. Let's go ahead and get you started. What do you say? Let's get you pumped up. Let's get you ready to go. Excited. Setting the tone for not only today, but for the entire week. Let's have a little fun today. What do you say? This is the Voice of Reason.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
Oh, yeah. Welcome in. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, I'd love to hear from you today. We got a lot to talk about. A lot happened over the weekend. Kind of a big one. An exciting one. A frustrating one at times. But it's all up to you. 316-721-8255. We are live on Facebook Live this morning. If you want to leave a comment, ask a question, you're more than welcome to do so. I have not completed, but I have started to create a profile on, what is it, Mayway? I don't know, MEWE. I have started creating a profile on there as everybody's upset with Facebook, and a lot of conservatives, a lot of individuals beginning to move towards other different programs and social media outlooks. I have started creating a profile on there for the personal page. Now, I still got to create the show pages, maybe a KQAM page and a Voice of Reason page and everything, but I have started creating a personal profile on Mayway. So if you're on there, go ahead and look me up. I don't think everything's filled out yet. I just started it yesterday. So it's going to take some time to try and get adjusted to a new social media platform. We will still keep the Facebook stuff going as well, but we're going to expand our horizons, as we always like to do, and we'll start creating some new profiles on different social media outlets for you if you're interested on looking to join up on some of those. I have to admit, I have noticed that even though I mock it, I tease it, I take shots at it, I have a little fun with it, I pick fun at it, I notice that in many aspects of my life, I kind of am a millennial. And I hate to say that to some degree because the millennials kind of have a bad reputation, but I represent, and we try and represent the alternative millennial in that generation. And there's many of us that are actually listening to the show and that enjoy it and that believe the same way and the like-minded ideals that I have with the younger generation. But I've noticed that I'm kind of part of the weirdness of the millennial generation in myself as well, just sometimes. I don't know if you've seen the story. First off, they started off, what was it, about a year or so ago, I saw the story of how millennials are no longer wearing wedding rings, but they are tattooing their ring on their finger. So that way it's just permanent on there forever. And I'm okay with that. And I kind of like that idea. I'm a big fan of the tattoos. I know that a lot of people don't like tattoos. My parents and my grandparents, when I got my tattoo, they hated the fact that I was going to get a tattoo. My grandmother was so mad and so upset. She was just so ashamed. I can't believe that you're going to... I was the first grandchild to get a tattoo in the family. And she did not like that fact. My parents... My dad was kind of okay with it. He was just kind of like, whatever. Yeah, if you want to get it, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But my mom, she despised it. And I had talked about getting a tattoo my senior year of high school. And she told me, she said, if you get a tattoo, then all financial aid gets cut off. You're done. If you can afford a tattoo, then you can afford to live on your own without any support in any way, shape, or form. And she just didn't like them. So I went to college, and obviously I was still needing some parents' money for like ramen noodles and stuff. So ended up not getting a tattoo. I didn't actually get my tattoo until 6 years ago, actually this June, really right before my wife and I got married, and I finally got my first tattoo, and I love it, and I'm really happy with it, and I can't wait to get my next one. And I'm one of those where I really, really enjoy that. And of course, it's a millennial thing because generations past really didn't focus a whole lot on the whole tattoo thing. But now they have the tattoos for the wedding ring to where you tattoo your wedding band on your finger instead of actually wearing a piece of metal. And I would love that idea. I haven't done that yet. I don't know if my wife would like that or enjoy that or not, but I wouldn't mind that because, it's forever, so I'm just going to kind of keep it on there. But now they have, and I saw the story about a week or so ago, and I've been holding on to it, but I saw it again over the weekend, and I actually saw the picture. Now they're not only tattooing the wedding band on their finger, but they're embedding the diamond into the skin. Now, I don't know how people come up with these kinds of crazy things, but again, I thought, wow, I'm kind of willing to try this. I know it sounds really crazy, but I'm kind of willing to try the whole embedding the diamond into the finger. I don't know if that's just nuts. I don't know if people are losing it, but lately a lot of people are coming to look for that. I think it looks nice, but if you really think what it's doing to the body, it can be scarring. It's so many complications, yada, yada, yada. The biggest issue is keeping the area around the piercing clean. But you've seen a lot of the piercings to where some of the, and I don't get this, where they do like the studs in the cheeks, or they do the little stud right beneath the lip, or they do the studs, to wherever. They do these weird little studs, or in other cultures, they actually stud them into the skin, like on the arms and legs and stuff like that. And it's just not diamonds, just pieces of metal that they just stud into you. And I don't understand those, but I can kind of understand a diamond into the finger. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know. Maybe I've lost it. Maybe I'm just one of those crazy young millennial individuals. 316-721-8255. A lot of things happened over the weekend. I got a call over the weekend late at night as the big news had broke that we had bombed Syria and that President Trump had announced his bombing of Syria, and not too many people happy about that. For whatever reason, I don't understand. I know that this isn't the George W. Bush era to where we like to create conflicts overseas. I understand the fact that a lot of people were upset at the fact that President Donald Trump did not get congressional approval to use those missiles, but I made a post and I stand with it on social media, is that I feel safe, I feel secure, and I am damn happy that we had the leaders in our leadership that we do right now, President Donald Trump as the President of the United States, that we will hopefully soon have Mike Pompeo as the Secretary of State. I am very proud of that fact. I am very proud of General Mad Dog Mattis being able to run that. I'm very proud of Nikki Haley heading up the United Nations. I'm very proud of our leadership right now. Because if it were Hillary Clinton with this same position, do you really think that it would have happened the way that it happened? The reason that I'm proud of President Trump bombing Syria, now I'm not happy of getting involved in another conflict. I'm not necessarily thrilled about wasting money on military operations or getting involved in things that we don't necessarily need to get involved in, or that we may never see an end to. I'm not happy about that. And I don't want you to get me wrong on this one, because I know people are going to call up and say, Andy, you're just another warmonger. You're a neocon. You're a crazy conservative. You're a nut job. And I don't want you to get the wrong impression here. What I am proud of, though, is that we have a nation like Syria who's using chemical warfare on their own people. It's sad, it's devastating, it breaks my heart, and call me a bleeding heart for that fact. I don't like to see it. And us being the powerhouse nation of the world, we have a responsibility for other individuals other than our own citizens to try and stop genocide from happening, to try and stop chemical warfare from happening, from stopping terrible, horrible things from happening to other people in other nations. It's our duty to try and stop that. That's why we have someone like Sam Brownback as the ambassador for religious freedom, trying to stop religious persecution around the world and working with the United Nations on that. Do I like the United Nations? No, I don't. Are they completely irrelevant? For the most time, yeah. But at least we have an ambassador that's at least trying to yell and scream and saying, wait a second, hello. We need to stop some of the craziness that's happening just because you believe in a certain religion. We're seeing biological warfare happen in Syria. We're seeing the chemicals being tested onto their own people. We're seeing hundreds and thousands of people die in terrible, horrible ways. And that needs to stop. Number two, we have a country named Russia that's very buddy-buddy with Syria, and that threatened that if we ever shot any missiles towards Syria, that they would shoot them down. Well, guess what? We're not unlike the last administration. We have not backed down. We have not apologized. We did not drop the little flyers to warn them of what was going to happen. We announced and said, hey, we're going to bomb you, and we don't care what Russia or any other nation has to say because we're going to do the right thing. I feel great of the fact that we stand up for ourselves as a nation again. That's really what we need, isn't it? Isn't that really what we need? Russia, which, by the way, doesn't this kind of pop the bubble of the whole mentality that Trump's colluding with Russia? Because Russia came out and called Donald Trump a fascist, a Nazi, Hitler, whatever they ended up calling him. They hate the fact that Donald Trump went against their will here because Donald Trump did what he thought was right, and without congressional approval, he went and he said, you know what, Russia, to hell with you. We don't care if you're going to try and shoot down our missiles. Good luck trying, because we have very smart missiles, and it's going to not play very well into you trying to catch them. And do whatever you need to, but we're going to do what we feel is right. The fact that we stood up for ourselves, the fact that we stood on our own two legs, the fact that we actually became an adult, reminds me of the Pampers commercial, I'm a big kid now. The fact that we're doing it by ourselves, and that we don't have other nations telling us what to do with our foreign policy, to me, that is something we need to be prideful of. To me, that's something that we should actually enjoy. To me, that is something that we haven't had for a long time that I think feels really, really nice to have back. That we have leaders that actually want to lead, that do not care what other nations want to do, and that we have made that decision on our own, regardless of what consequences or what may come afterwards, because we knew it was the right thing to do. I want to get your thoughts on this. Maybe I'm in the wrong here, but even though I don't necessarily like a conflict, I do like the fact that we are standing by ourselves and doing what's right.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Mid-America Network.
Into it, 23 minutes past the hour. Great to have you along today. It is a Monday morning. Let's start you off the right way. What do you say? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Your thoughts on the attacks that began over the weekend with President Donald Trump in Syria. The attacks, or I'd say the verbal attacks that came from Russia because of that fact, because they don't like us being involved in the chemical warfare. Now, it's a comment, we don't know that Assad's the one actually doing the chemical warfare attacks. I think that, well, I mean, I don't know if we don't know that Assad's doing the attacks. I'm sure that the military has more intel on that than we do. As far as I'm aware of, the military strikes that we did have with the missiles over the weekend were targeted towards places where the chemical warfare things were being held. I mean, I saw the story to where, we bombed close to 4 or 5 different locations with close to like 60 different missiles where they're actually collecting and storing different chemical warfares, and we blew them all up. That's good news to me. I like that fact. Let's get rid of their weapons. Let's get rid of those. Now, I saw the story, according to the Associated Press this morning, Syrians rally in Damascus in support of Assad's military. And, of course, now, because Donald Trump is a Republican, Donald Trump has started a conflict over there where we didn't necessarily need to. We've already bombed him once, last year. Now we're doing it again, and people are not very happy about it. Republicans not happy because we don't need to be involved in another conflict. Democrats not very happy because they don't like Donald Trump and what we're doing, so therefore we're attacking innocent children and women and individuals, and it's a terrible, horrible thing. And now they're saying the people are rallying against the United States over there, which is just not true. It is just not true. And you want to learn about fake news. You want to learn about lies. You want to learn about manipulation. There obviously are some that would side with maybe their side because they get the regurgitated media about how terrible the West is. At the same time, though, we're seeing a trend of an evolution of thinking when it comes to certain areas in the world and their thoughts and their mentality of what the United States actually is and what the United States actually represents. Whether it's young generation individuals from Russia understanding that Russia is still pretty much a communist dictatorship with Vladimir Putin, and that they realize that they don't have the rights to do necessarily what many other people do throughout the world. Why? Because they actually live on the internet. We have individuals in the Middle East that are saying, oh, thank God this is actually happening because we don't want to be the new nice little biological test for our government. And thank God the United States is here to actually help that out. So, again, I say kudos to President Trump, kudos to all of our leaders, Nikki Haley for standing up to the United Nations, hopefully Mike Pompeo, if he can get into Secretary of State and he can actually support these movements as well. We can eliminate these threats. We can make sure that some of these nations... Now, I don't necessarily want to overthrow Assad. I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing for us. I don't know if we need to overthrow another government and have it unstable in the Middle East. We already have instability in the Middle East. Don't know if we need a whole lot more. But nonetheless, let's bomb them. Let's get rid of the biological weapons. Let's make sure that they're not going to harm their citizens. And it's only about the oil. Well, no, it's not. It's about sticking up for ourselves. And when the bully tells you not to do something, the best response is probably to do it. 316-721-82. Maybe I'm in the wrong. I know that a lot of people may disagree with me on this, and I want to hear from you if you disagree with the conflict in Syria. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it today, but I figured that was kind of the biggest news that happened over the weekend that we do need to address, because the response, what's it going to be? Now, Russia says they're going to be sending in tanks. They're going to be sending in ground forces. They're going to be sending in a lot of military into Syria because they like that stronghold that they have. We have a stronghold in Israel. They have a stronghold in Syria, and we're going to see what's going to come out of it. It's really, the Middle East right now is really the chessboard of other powerhouse nations throughout the world, seeing on who's going to gain the advantage in that area. And unfortunately, there are going to be some innocent lives stuck in the middle of it. That's the way war is. It's unfortunate. It's heartbreaking. That's the reality. What they need to realize, though, is that they need to decide what side they're going to be on. They need to make a decision on who they're going to support, what they're going to do to their people, how much freedom or liberty that they're going to give to their people and their nations, and that that's going to have a repercussion one way or another. They really have to decide these. It's a totally different mind thought, a totally different mentality compared to what we have to deal with here in the United States, because we are the powerhouse. We don't allow people to bully us around, at least anymore. Barack Obama liked to do that. Someone said jump, and he asked how high. Someone said go over here and make a speech, and guess where he went to make a speech? He liked to apologize. He liked to tour around the world. He liked to talk about the terribleness of America, and people began to cling on to that. It's a little bit foreign for us today, isn't it? It's a little bit different for us today when we come out and we say, hey, you know what, Russia, you may be not necessarily our greatest ally or our enemy or whatever you are. We're not quite sure yet, but you're going to tell us to do something. Watch this. We don't really care. Doesn't this blow the bubble? I mean, the first thing I thought about when I heard this is, doesn't it pop the entire bubble of the book about James Comey with colluding with Russia, about the entire year-and-a-half-long investigation by the media trying to find collusion with Russia, trying to say that Russia chose Donald Trump to be in there so that way he could do their bidding. Doesn't this blow the entire conspiratorial bubble of Donald Trump and Russia working together, because they just called Donald Trump Hitler? They despise him for what he's doing in the Middle East and his involvement with Syria. They don't like it. And him not, instead of saying, you know what, I guess we won't because Russia asked us not to and we're trying to play nice with them, he said, hey, here you go. We have some big, beautiful missiles. Try and catch them, buddy, because we're going to do our own thing. To me, I'm proud of that. Let's wave the flag, baby. We're America. We're not going to let anybody else bully us around any longer, because we are the powerhouse of the world, and we're going to remind ourselves of that.
Time for Reason.
We just increased education funding last year, $400 million over the next 2 years. That's not enough. They wanted $1 billion. So what do? They compensate by now coming out with a new lawsuit, or continuing the lawsuit, asking for an additional $600 million.
The voice of reason with Andy Hoosier.
You know what's really funny about that is that they did ask for $600 million. After the study, they now want $2 billion. And the spending bill that's sitting there ready for the governor to sign after they fix the $80 million error will be anywhere between $500 million and $1 billion. So we have a ways to work, but it's funny how all the numbers seem to add up to whatever they get, while it's our compromise to be able to solve the educational issue. We will talk about that in a little bit. We had the governor's debate on Friday for the GOP. I got some audio clips. We'll play some of those, get your thoughts on that. If you did watch it, if you were there attending in Atchison, Kansas on, Friday night, that was a great debate, and we'll play some of that and get your thoughts on that just a little bit from now. Welcome back in, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Got the call on the line. Let's go to that, shall we? Good morning. What's your name? Hello. Yeah, good morning. How are you? Hello. All right, give us a call back. We want to hear from you. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Not sure if that was on my end or on yours, but do try and give us a call back. I want to shift gears a little bit from the Middle Eastern conflict. If you do want to talk about that, you're more than welcome to. But I want to shift gears just a little bit. And I have to admit that I was wrong to some degree, but not really. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But let's go ahead and take a phone call here. 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name? Hello. Hope we're not having some phone issues. Give me a call again. Let's give it a test again and see if I don't know if it's on your end or on mine, but we'd love to hear from you on there. California. I made a comment last week, and I said that California would never send troops from the National Guard to the border, to the southern border. I said that it would never happen, and it came from the story after that President Donald Trump would be requesting some of the National Guard to go down to the southern border to try and secure the southern border, and until we actually build the wall and we actually do our immigration reform. And I said that there were some states like Oregon where the governor made the comment that we would never send any National Guard down there. The president hasn't asked us yet, but if he does ask us, then we would never send anyone down there because we don't support the movement. And I made the comment that there would be some other states that would do the same thing, California being one of them. Well, they tried to say that I was wrong. They tried. But I guess I should have clarified myself a little bit because California is sending troops as requested to the southern border. However, it's not for the agenda of what President Trump would like them to do. There's a big difference there. I said that they would not go down to enforce the wall as we had thought and like many other states would. But California Governor Jerry Brown agreed on Wednesday last week to deploy 400 National Guard troops at President Donald Trump's request, but not to the U.S.-Mexico border as Trump wanted to enforce federal immigration enforcement. Let's be clear on this. We will not be on a mission to build a new wall. Their goal, they say, will be to fight for existing programs to combat transnational drug crime, firearms, and smuggling and human trafficking. So they're going down on their own agenda. They're going down to do their own thing. We say that we're going to enforce the border to keep illegal immigrants out. They're not doing that. They just want to fight the drug crimes and the human trafficking, which I don't know how you can do unless you actually enforce immigration. But they wanted to be very clear on this. Is the Californians wanting to do their own thing because they're the free thinkers, man. They're the wild free thinkers. They're the ones that want to actually do their own thing. So we're not going to be down there to enforce immigration, man. We're just going to stop all the trafficking and all the drugs and all the crime that's happening down in California because we're the free thinkers. So we're going to do our own thing. We got to be very clear on this. Now, the media, of course, is saying that they're abiding by Trump and that Trump requested them to go down there. They're going down there. But of course they have to be kind of the rebellious child that's right about 14, 15 years old to where they're told to do something and they kind of do it, but they got to do it in their own way because they got to be the free thinkers, man. 316-721-8255. Let's take a phone call, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, happy Let's Blow Something Up Monday.
What's happening, Myron? How are you?
Oh, I'm pretty and I'm good.
There you go.
I wanted to give you a little feedback. I follow Russian English broadcasting for like RT, which is supposedly a foreign agent. I love that one.
Okay.
We brand foreign media as agents. But the one thing that really annoyed me about our attack is the day after the attack, inspectors from the International Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons would have been on site to inspect. So we blew up everything that they would be inspecting before they could inspect it. And if all these chemicals were there that are dangerous, wouldn't blowing them up spread them?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Depending on what missiles we use, which I'm sure they're smart enough to figure this out, but depending on what missiles that we used, it would burn hot enough to incinerate everything as opposed to actually just spreading it around. You have to use the right kind of missile that would explode at a hot enough temperature to be able to incinerate the entire chemical, which was the goal, and that's what we wanted to use. So that's why when Donald Trump was teasing and mocking a little bit with Russia, saying that they were going to send these really smart missiles and they were certain types of missiles, that we send the right thing to incinerate the entire chemical by burning at a hot enough temperature as opposed to just blowing it up and, like you said, just creating a cloud and just having it float all over the place. So there is that. Now, as opposed to the inspections, it would have been better to have the inspectors look at it first. I don't know if it would have necessarily helped us in any way, shape, or form. Look, the United Nations are absolutely useless. Absolutely useless. And all these inspectors that came in, it's really the same kind of inspectors that would go to Iraq when we were looking for the weapons of mass destruction and said, oh, we didn't see anything, as our military was watching them literally cross the border, lie, but they were being told to stand down and not do anything. The blue helmets, the United Nations, these inspectors, they do very little. And if they would have found a chemical, then instead of us actually being able to apprehend them or be able to stop Syria or put sanctions on them or do anything, the United Nations would have said, well, you know what, we're going to give them a year's period to remove them, or a 6-month period to remove them, and we'll come and inspect them again. And if you don't do anything, then we may fine you, and we may put a little slap on the wrist, while all the same time we would have continued to actually shoot these things into the general public to be able to test these chemicals. So I love the idea that, you know what, United Nations, you're completely useless. You're not going to help us in any way, shape, or form stop this from happening. We're just going to incinerate the chemicals so that way you don't have to worry about it. And personally, that's where I'm at. I know a lot of people may not like that. We may like to go through more of the bureaucratic process through like the United Nations, but I'm not a fan of it. I think that we just need to kind of take matters into our own hands, or else it never would have gotten done.
Well, see, where I see on the international view is the poisoning alleged in Salisbury. No evidence was presented. They have this inspection agency that says Russia has destroyed all of their chemical weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And Russia makes a real big point that they've destroyed all of theirs and we haven't. But these chemical attacks, well, who could they be coming from? It is optics. Because I like Mike Pompeo, because I trust the agencies. I go with they know something.
Sure.
But it would look better if they inspected, the UN being worthless, saying, they are chemical weapons. And then destroy them. Sure. And I can see that. But the only problem that I have with that, and I agree, I mean, it might have looked better in that sense. The only problem I would have had was that if the United Nations would have confirmed that the chemical weapons were there, then they would have put sanction on us to not be able to touch them, because we're now, going through the bureaucratic process of, hey, we're going to try and remove these peaceably. And whether it's from Assad, whether it's from Russia, whether it's from whoever, I mean, they're there and they're being used, and I don't want to see another person be harmed by them. So I say, heck with it. We are kind of the rebel nation anyways, aren't we? I mean, we're the revolutionists who just say we don't really care what the rest of the world's doing or the powerhouses tell us to do. We know what's right, and we're just going to kind of do our own thing. And I think that this is really the mentality of what Donald Trump had, was just, we're going to start bombing these guys and we're going to eliminate these chemical weapons, and we never have to worry about them again. And if Russia doesn't like it, then too bad, so sad. It really exposes them for being the corrupt government that likes to use chemical weapons anyways. And I really think that it's time for us to take the matter into our hands and really do something that's productive on this, rather than trying to wait for the United Nations to come down with another resolution. Yeah, just what I see and watch is that on the world scale, Russia keeps saying, prove it, give us some evidence. And then we go and blow it up. We don't show any evidence, And so it's like, look at Libya. Libya was stable under Muammar Gaddafi.
Well, you know what? This could create a whole nother conspiracy theory here, is the fact that Russia says prove it. We go and blow stuff up so they necessarily can't prove it. Maybe this will play into the whole Trump colluding with Russia thing, because they're fake pretending to be very angry with us. But in fact, they're very happy because we blew up all the evidence of what potentially could have been there to show that they were in the wrong and that they actually had these chemical weapons. So maybe Trump really is working with the Russians.
Everybody, the thing I love the most about Russian media today is, your car won't start. It must be the Russians. Oh, it's raining today. It must be the Russians.
Well, it must be. I mean, there's Russians all over this place, I tell you what.
They're having a field day laughing at us, and I would like to see the U.S. I have no doubt. Of course, I have the doubt that there were weapons of mass destruction that they didn't find.
Well, they did find them. They did. I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, but they found the weapons of mass destruction. Some of them, by the way, being shipped over to Syria across the Iraq border. Some of them still being in Iraq. But after Trump had left, or after Bush had left, and after once Barack Obama was in office, about midway through the Obama administration's reign, we found the weapons of mass destruction. So that entire hoopla of Bush lied and there was no WMDs, that's a lie, because we found them.
Yeah, I just if you look at it objectively from the world view, we keep alleging things and then we don't prove it. And Russia is like, hey, me? What, me?
Innocent little Russia. I love it. Myron, I appreciate the call, my friend. Look, I get what you're saying. I think that, maybe we could do it a little more through the process, but we're not that kind of nation. Donald Trump's not that kind of person, and if we are going to be involved in conflicts, which many people don't want to be, if we are going to be involved in them, then he's taking the approach of get in, get her done, blow the stuff up, and then move on and be done with it. And I like that process. No more holding the banner above saying mission accomplished and then being there for another 12 years. Let's just do it, get her done with, and be done with the whole process. What do you say?
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
That's what I'm saying. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 1, starting off year Monday morning the best way we know how to do so, better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink, baby. That's the way we roll today on a Monday morning. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. By the way, shifting gears a little bit, going from the international wars to the local wars. The Oklahoma teachers walkout, all said and done. They're going back to school this morning. 2 weeks of a protest. And they say, according to the Oklahoma City American Federation of Teachers president, Ed Allen, Oklahoma City teachers will be walking into schools Monday with our heads held high. And their pocketbooks probably a little bit lighter compared to what their paychecks usually are for walking out of school and their job for the last 2 weeks. But they walk in with their heads held high, proud of the gains we accomplished for students at schools and educators. Monday also marks the start of our Remember in November fight to elect pro public education legislators. Look, this is such a BS kind of statement, a general build the straw man kind of statement, a pro public education legislators. They're going to be going back and marching, apparently, going into the November election, trying to get pro public educator legislators elected into the state legislature. Remember, there are no anti-public education legislators. There's nobody that says, I absolutely hate public schools and I will defund all public schools because I hate children. There's no one that's getting elected that way. There's no one that's even trying to run that way. There's no one's mindset that says, I hate public schools so much that I'm going to defund public education and I'm going to stick it to all the children that actually have to go through it. No one says that. There is let's give everything to public schools because public schools are the ultimate thing, and teachers and administrators and bureaucrats and yada, 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 they deserve all of it, so let's just give all this. And there are others that say, let's limit that and make it actually efficient. This was a big talking point when we had the Republican governors debate on Friday. We'll play some of the clips coming up in hour number 2 with that one. But this is absurd, an absurd comment by them. And by the way, what did they accomplish? Did they get any more legislation? Did they get to advance anything for salaries? I didn't hear of any legislation coming out of Oklahoma that said, yep, we got it changed. Okay, we're going to give more salaries to teachers. We're going to give more salaries to spending. We're going to do this. We're going to give more money all over the place across the board because the teachers won after 2 weeks of them standing outside the legislatures, outside of the state capitol and protesting and complaining. I don't hear of any of those pieces of legislation. Maybe they did, but it's not in the news, at least that I saw. So they can hold their heads high at the fact that they lost out on 2 weeks worth of education for their children because it's so important for the children to get educated and get smart that they decided not to show up for that because they are outside the Capitol protesting in Oklahoma. Does that make any sense to you? Does that make any sense? And it probably would have gone longer if they would have seen some kind of gains. It probably would have gone longer if they actually would have seen some progress in what they were trying to advocate for, but they weren't. The Democrats in the state legislature in Oklahoma were trying to stop the normal process in the legislature, trying to stop their normal business to address this. They have a supermajority of Republicans in the state legislature, and they said, no, we're going to go about our business as usual. We're going to do our normal business. We're going to go through our normal agenda, and that's that. And we'll readdress it later. We just gave you a pay increase. What was it? A 17% pay increase, 10%, whatever it was. A major $6,000 salary hike for all the teachers just a few weeks ago. The week before you started protesting, 3 weeks ago. But it wasn't enough, and you didn't like it. What else do you want from us? We're in a financial bind as the state of Oklahoma right now. What else do you want from us? So the Oklahoma Teachers Union, I hope that the union, with all the dues that the teachers pay into them, I hope the union was actually compensating them for their salary for those 2 weeks while they were protesting. Probably not. And the teacher said finally, we got to go back to school because we're hurting on our paycheck. For the little bit that we actually are getting, according to us, the little bit that we are receiving, we need to make sure that we actually get that, because not showing up for 2 weeks has led to some schools being shut down, obviously, and me not getting a paycheck. So we need to go back to work. The teachers union, I guarantee you that if they would have had their say, that they would have continued to allow them or force them or push them or encourage them to continue to protest for a little bit longer. But they couldn't hold out anymore. This one goes in for a W for the Republicans, who said we're not going to change up our daily business, and we're going to continue going about what we need to go about, and we'll address this a little bit later. If you want to fight it, do exactly what they threatened to do. Fight it during election time at the voting booth. I don't see any changes, maybe a few here and there, but I don't see some major changes happening in Oklahoma. They're going to have to address the revenue issue and the economy before they address salaries for teachers, even more so than what they already did.
It's time for Reason.
The government is nothing more in this situation than the big bad wolf in the cloak of a sheep, trying to look like the innocent little grandmother, trying to look like the innocent little Red Riding Hood when she knocks on the door the first time to intrude into the house to eat the grandmother. The government is the dangerous one in this situation, and we're allowing them to investigate Facebook for things that the private market can solve itself in the private sector.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 2 of the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. It's great to have you along today, starting off a brand new week. What do you say? Let's have a little fun today. Let's start off your day, wake you up in the morning, get you set, carpe diem all over this place, set the tone for not only today, but for the entire week. We're going to have some fun. I tell you what, this is the Voice of Reason on a Monday.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get
316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, I'd love to hear from you today. Big news happening over the weekend all across the board, nationally, locally. It's been a fun one. Sometimes you just can't keep track of everything that's happening as it happens on the weekend, and they really just don't want you to know about it, and it happens when you're trying to spend time with the family. I got to say, I got to spend some great time with the family. It started off frustrating, though. I got to tell you a little story. We always talk about the law enforcement, and I have to say, sometimes you wonder where the heck law enforcement is when you actually need them. We got the motorcycle cops in the area, in the Wichita area, for traffic violations, and it drove me nuts. Friday night, driving home from work, I was all happy, ready to start the weekend, ready to go. Wasn't feeling the best. I was trying to get over the whole little bit of sickness. The family kind of had the bout to strep throat and all the junk they got, but I did not lose my voice. I was very proud of that. But I was driving home, just kind of cruising, going along Kellogg, going eastbound, and this stupid little Prius. That's all I'm gonna say about it. This stupid little Prius. Meep meep. Two-cylinder car there, for whatever reason, was upset at the fact that I wasn't going fast enough, which now I was going the speed limit. I was going to flow with everybody else on the street. I was just kind of cruising along, ready for my weekend to start. Meep, meep. What does he do? He gets upset, comes right up to my bumper behind me, starts riding my back end, cruises to the right side of me to pass me, gives me the happy little one-fingered salute, and then comes up and about clips the front of my car as he goes in to swerve in front of me and pass me. Then he starts to slow down because he's upset, and then takes off and cruises along. So me, being the feisty little angry Irishman that I am, I start cruising up to him, and I get right up beside him again. I'm like, what's your problem, dude? And I look at him, and he again gives me the one-fingered salute. And then he starts to swerve into my lane, and it almost looks like he's about to hit me. So I slam on my brakes, and I rail on the horn, and then he takes off and takes another exit and disappears. And I was really, really, really close to following him off that ramp. But I had a happy little family that I was looking forward to getting home to, and I decided not to do so because it would have wasted my time. But I don't know if he was just having a bad day. Now, there are very few things in my life that really get me worked up. Really few things. Even in being involved in politics, there are very few things that actually get me riled up and really upset. I can deal with politics because it's not personal. We can spar, we can debate, we can have fun, and I'm still a happy-go-lucky, cheery kind of guy. I get frustrated at politics at times, but then I vent on the radio. Luckily, I have this outlet, and then I just move on, and everything's happy, hunky-dory. But there are very few things that really upset me, and that's one of them. Are stupid people on the roads, and I don't know whether he was having a bad day. I don't know whether he thought that I was just going slow. I don't know if he just didn't like the fact that he probably knew I was a Trump supporter. I don't know, but his ridiculous little Prius, I didn't know that two-cylindered bicycles could go that fast, and then he just felt like cruising along, and of course, he was one of the hipster-looking individuals and gave me the nice little one-fingered salute and then went about his way. And I was really close to just returning the favor, but I decided with my better judgment against something like that. So that's how the weekend started. But then it turned around, and it was great from there. And we had a lot of fun. We, for the first time, took the young one to Chuck E. Cheese. And I have not been to Chuck E. Cheese since I was 10 myself. And ended up taking her there on Saturday night, and boy, oh boy, did she have a blast. And she just wanted to go and 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 play this game and play that game and play this game and play that game, and just running all over the place. And she was worn out by the end of Saturday night, and then ended up wanting to just hang out on Sunday. So that was the weekend. It was kind of fun. Other than that, we had, of course, the bombing in Syria. If you want to talk about that, we talked about it a little bit in the first hour with President Trump making that known and bombing the facilities that were holding a lot of the chemical weapons in Syria. You can get your thoughts on that. And, of course, the Republican governor's debate that happened on Friday evening. I got some of the audio clips, and we'll play that in just a second as well. Alan Cobb, by the way, president for the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, he'll be joining us in the 8 o'clock hour, talking about not only the educational funding bill, but tax rates in the state, economic development in the state, and what to look forward to through the Kansas Chamber of Commerce. So we'll talk with Alan Cobb in about 45 minutes from now. But until then, let's go to the phone. Let's take a phone call, shall we? 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Jim, what's happening?
Oh, not much. I was just going to say that I understand they've discovered gold in the big hole over in Syria. So there's going to be a gold rush. Started here before long, and it would be part of Trump's Make America Great Again.
So do you think that's why we ended up bombing them, to be involved in there so that way we could get the gold? I mean, before in Iraq and in Iran, it was the oil. Now it's going to be the gold?
Well, I mean, the Discovery Channel can go over there, and they can do it as part of the Ancient Aliens show. They can also do the gold mining show.
There we go.
Anyway, to be serious, the guy who was really causing the problem on the road was driving the car you were in, and he chased down the guy who had already passed him, was no longer a threat or a problem, and he allowed his ego to get ahead. And you're just lucky that nothing really happened, because the police would have said, "Wait a minute, what are you doing chasing him down?"
Well, and that's the thing, and that's why I calm myself, because he literally came up. He probably could have reached out and touched my bumper with how close he got behind me. Then when he got on the side of me, he gave me the nice little bird. And then when he cut me off in front of me, he probably almost clipped my bumper with how close he just weaved right in front of me, because he was, for whatever, on his little, like you mentioned, his little ego trip. Again, I did not realize that stupid little Priuses could go that fast. And it just, I don't know, if I was maybe 5 years younger or whatever, or maybe I wasn't married, I probably would have chased him down. And I almost had it, because there's one thing that drives me nuts is road rage. And I admit that I probably have that. If someone upsets me like that and goes out of their way to upset me, I will gladly return the favor, but I chose wisely against it this time.
I'll agree that you backed off. You should have backed off a few minutes earlier. There was no reason to chase him down.
But it would have made me feel better. Come on, sometimes. I told you, I'm German and I'm Irish. I like to drink beer and brawl. That's what I do. And if someone gives me the opportunity to brawl, I will gladly take them up on that offer, either philosophically and verbally, or whether it's a nice little brawl and then we have a beer at the end of the day. Jim, I love it. I appreciate the call, my friend. I'm kidding. I'm not a big fighter. I've actually gotten in one fight my entire life, and it was in like middle school. So I haven't been in a lot of physical altercations, but come on. Who does that? Who comes up behind you like that when you're going? I mean, it's not like you're slowing down traffic or anything, and then you end up just cutting a guy off, giving him the bird, and going about your business. You're going to get some kind of repercussion from that, are you not? Where are the cops when you need them, right there, and then give this guy a ticket. I tell you what, let's go to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, Andy, it's Pam.
Pam, what's happening? Happy Monday.
Well, what I'm thinking on this whole deal, and I just heard a report, Rick was talking about a teenager that ran off the road and ended up in a ditch or some water or something and was killed. What we need to do before you can get a driver's license, you need to be fingerprinted. You need 3 months worth of background check. Let's see, what else? Oh, mental test to
That's
make
right.
sure you're mentally stable to drive a 5,000-pound automobile.
That's true. We should probably raise the minimum
You're not
wage.
going to be nuts when you're on the road.
That is true, and we probably need to raise the minimum age to 21.
Absolutely.
Yeah. A 3-day waiting period after you take the test to really consider whether you actually want to do it or not, or for us to be able to screen you. I mean, I really think that we need to have these procedures in place so that way we don't have road rage on the road, because we're just, inconsiderate.
For a non-constitutional right, I actually think the rules should be more steep.
Well,
So we'd have to think of a bunch more stuff to add on to that.
you know what we really honestly do need to do, and it drives me nuts, and maybe this is just because there are a lot of people that just grow up in the city and don't have the opportunity to do things as a child, but I mean, I remember as a kid, driving the lawnmower, or driving the tractor, or even driving the old truck, the manual truck in the field, and that's how you learn. I mean, you don't even start driving on the road until, obviously that age, but you've already had years of experience by driving many other things to get that experience. So by the time you drive on the road, it's a really easy thing. You're like, all I got to do is stay in between these two lines. Okay.
Right.
It's a simple process. So maybe it should be mandatory for someone to live on a farm for 2 years, driving tractors and trucks and lawnmowers before they actually get their driver's license. I don't know.
And working, and that would take care of we need all these illegals. We could just fix everything.
And we can fix all of it right there. And I mean, if you're going to start driving, then you got to learn how to parallel park. And by the way, you got to learn how to back up while pulling a trailer, and be able to back up with the trailer and back it up in line. And I guarantee you, once you learn how to do that, then it's going to be easy peasy being able to drive a stupid little Prius around.
Yeah, but
I'm sorry about anybody that drives Priuses too. That just It drove me nuts. That burned me up.
Well, and, I think we've all been out on the road when somebody has been mad or wanted to play games.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, do you understand? You're in this, 2-ton automobile.
Sure.
And you're wanting to play games?
Oh, yeah. Oh, he was enjoying himself on Friday. That's for sure.
Well, and we don't seem to understand. These are a lot more dangerous than anything else we can devise.
Yeah, well, it drove me nuts. Pam, I love it. I appreciate it. Your experience on road rage or ridiculous drivers didn't necessarily want to make that a focal point on the show. But if you are frustrated, I'm sure that especially like morning drive and morning traffic can get you all riled up as well at times. But that was my experience. It was a great weekend overall. I do want to touch on this. I want to take a break. When we come back, we'll touch on the governor's debates with some of the audio clips, some really big division with the Republicans when it came to educational finance, kind of the hot topic that was discussed at the debate on Friday. We'll play that, get your thoughts on it. And then, of course, the conflict in Syria with the bombing of the chemical plants. Russia, doesn't this pop the hole into the whole like Russia collusion thing with the fact that Russia called Trump Hitler and that he warned and that they warned that if we shot any missiles, they'd blow up the missiles and shoot them down. And then we ended up shooting them off anyways. Doesn't that pop the hole in the entire collusion with Russia conspiracy theory? Or does it embrace it because maybe we did it before the inspectors got there and we just saved Russia's you-know-what, and this is all nothing but a game and just a show of them being upset? Your thoughts on that and more. We got a lot to talk about today. Alan Cobb, again, Kansas president for the Chamber of Commerce, coming up at 8 o'clock. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
25 minutes past the hour. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM. Great to have you along today. 316-721-8255. I got that off my chest. I'm happy now. 316-721-8255. I want to remind you, by the way, this Friday, I'm really excited. This Friday, join me. I will be broadcasting live up in Topeka on Friday morning, the 20th. Surprise, surprise, it's 420. No, we're not going to be doing a 420 rally. We will be doing the Second Amendment, pro-Second Amendment rally up there on the Capitol grounds. The Kansas State Rifle Association sponsoring. We're going to have some great speakers. I will be emceeing and hosting the rally. The rally begins at 10 o'clock, so we'll be doing it right after the show. I'll be broadcasting the show live up there. From 6 to 9, like usual, regular showtime, up in Topeka, and then right afterwards, the rally at 10 o'clock. If you have an opportunity, take Friday off. Go up to the Capitol. Let's sponsor and let's support the Second Amendment rally, letting your legislators know that we do not want any type of legislation to infringe upon our Second Amendment rights. I'll be up there doing that at 10 o'clock. And then, starting at 1:30 on Friday and then going into Saturday as well, is the annual Kansas State Rifle Association's annual meeting up in Lenexa, Kansas at the Hyatt Place in Lenexa. I'll be going up there, and throughout the day on Friday and on Saturday, I'll be doing some broadcasts on Facebook Live, on the social media, on KQAM, Voice of Reason, along with on air. I'll be calling in some reports, so stay tuned in for that. We'll be talking with different vendors and exhibitors. We'll be talking with, hopefully, some of the speakers. We'll be talking about some of the meetings and legislation and content that they're discussing. And, of course, the Saturday morning annual shootout benefit fundraiser will be going on as well. I'll be covering that, too. At $35 tickets, if you want to go, it's going to be a lot of fun. Spend a weekend up in Lenexa. Have a little fun with the Second Amendment and the Kansas State Rifle Association. Visit more information at ksraweb.org. Again, KSRA, Kansas State Rifle Association, ksraweb.org, and we do want to thank our sponsors for partnering up with us on that one, which of course is the Kansas State Rifle Association, Augusta Flight Center, JD Aviation, Phil's Coins, MJ's Truck Repair in Mound Ridge, Rob's Gun Tech and Firearms, Auto Smart, and Jimmy's Egg. Thanks for all of those guys partnering up with us on that promotion, allowing us to go up, being able to cover it, do the rally on Friday, have a little fun. Now, I'm trying to think of being the MC and the host of the rally. We got to tie in 420 somehow on this. And I'm probably going to start it off with some kind of, oh, if anybody's here for the pot rally, you probably went to the wrong place. But knowing some of the the green 420 advocates, because, I mean, come on, it's 420. You know they're going to be up there rallying. You know they're going to be trying to legalize marijuana. You know they're going to try and push. It's 420. That's what they do. And some of them may already, at 10 a.m., may already be so lost into their green world and their pile of smoke that they probably may forget what rally they're actually attending. So we'll try and weed that out. Pun intended. We'll try and weed that out and have a little fun with that with the 420 Second Amendment rally. Remember, those two cannot coincide. They cannot coincide right now. The Second Amendment and marijuana right now, as legislation is written, it cannot coincide in any way, shape, or form. Many states are saying that if you want your green card to be able to purchase marijuana, you're not allowed to go through the background check. You're not allowed to purchase a firearm. And you really have to choose on your right of which one you believe is more important for you. The right to defend yourself, the right to feel like a lush. And I would choose the right to defend myself, but who knows? So we'll talk about that and a heck of a lot more. We'll talk to some of the speakers and we'll have a lot of fun, but it's both the rally at 10 o'clock at the Capitol, and then after that in the afternoon will be the Second Amendment Kansas State Rifle Association annual meeting. We'll be up there in Lenexa covering it all for you. Again, thanks to our sponsors, Jimmy's Egg, Auto Smart, Rob's Gun Tech and Firearms, MJ's Check Repair and Mound Ridge, Phil's Coins, Augusta Flight Center, JD Aviation, and of course, the Kansas State Rifle Association. By the way, all of the candidates will be up there. The governor's candidates, the congressional candidates. There are going to be a lot of different politicians up there supporting the Second Amendment. You can talk to them, ask them questions. We'll be interviewing some of them for the radio interviews as well for updates throughout the day, Friday and Saturday, with the vendors and exhibitors, them being part of that. So that way you know who's up there. That way you know who's supporting it. That way you know what candidates actually will defend your Second Amendment. Kind of important, isn't it? Bottom of the hour news coming up. We'll get your thoughts and calls when we come back. We'll also play some of the audio clips from the debate on Friday. Lots of big news coming out of that one. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Wichita's fastest growing radio show. You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Making it happen today. Welcome into The Voice of Reason. Great to have you along today on a Monday morning. Stay safe on the roads. Don't get your road rage, because that's apparently very easy to do. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, I'd love to hear from you today. What's on your mind? You can shoot me a message on Facebook, facebook.com/1480KQAM. Facebook live feed is up and rolling as well. So you can leave me a comment, ask a question, whatever you want to do there as well. Are we doing a... Good morning, sir.
We're not doing news.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I can do the... we got to do this anyway.
And it's time for some good news.
Need some good news. Here we go. What's happening?
Oh, not much, man. I'm laughing at your road rage incident that you're telling me about. You can't let people get under your skin. It's just stupid human tricks is what it is.
But here's the thing. There are very few things that get under my skin. You know me, and you know me on the radio. I'm a happy-go-lucky kind of guy. I don't let things get to me. Even during a very heated political debate discussion, I don't let it get to me because whatever. I mean, I let things roll off me. There's one thing that fires me up. Okay, there's two things that fire me up beyond belief, and that is an annoying dog and people that drive stupid on the roads.
Define annoying.
Do you really want me to? If you bark, if I turn around and you're right there and I trip over you all the time, if you slobber all over the place.
I don't like the slobber factor.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I don't like, okay, so like I've got 2 miniature dachshunds, right? And never in my wildest dreams would I have pictured myself, because I've always been the kind of I've liked, like manly man dogs, like the black labs, golden lab type stuff. And I told I've never liked yippy little ankle biter dogs, right? But my 2 dachshunds are amazing dogs. But I tell you what, if you want an exercise in patience, try and train a dachshund.
I'll
It
pass.
just doesn't happen. Okay, now back to stupid people tricks.
Yes.
Road rage is one of them. I saw something today that blew my mind. Right here at the radio station, I'm standing in the coffee room, and a guy pulls into our parking lot in a black Lexus SUV
Very nice.
and throws trash in our dumpster. And I'm like, are you friggin' serious? You're driving a friggin' Lexus, and you're coming here to throw trash in our dumpster.
Wow.
Stupid human tricks.
Stupid human tricks. I don't know. There are very few things that get under my skin.
I was sad about the passing of, what is it, Lee Emery? Was that his name?
Yes.
I
The
heard
Sergeant. That was a sad ordeal.
Gunnery Sergeant. Yeah, golly gee. He was
Makes
quite
you
the
sad.
icon, you know.
He really was.
You actually he was just a cool guy. I loved his roles and everything else. I heard Armed American Radio talking about it. They did quite a eulogy type thing
tribute to
last
good,
night.
good, yeah.
So that was cool. Did you watch the Cohen? Was that his name?
Yeah, James Comey. James Comey.
Comey.
James Comey.
Listen to me.
Co-
Oh my
Yes.
God! I invested an hour
I
of
think
my
I reached-
life into that last night and then got his name wrong.
James M. Cohan. Yeah, the same guy that wrote Yankee Doodle Dandy. No,
But-
James Comey. I watched clips of it. I didn't pay attention.
You didn't
to
watch
it.
the show?
No, I didn't. I watched
just
little
watched the
blurbs
clips.
of it. Yeah, I'm not going to watch it. He wrote a stupid book saying that Donald Trump's corrupt. He's a terrible human being, and he's colluding with Russia. Which, by the way, doesn't the whole invading Syria, or at least bombing Syria, when Russia warned us not to, completely pop the whole bubble of colluding with Russia?
I don't know because I don't talk politics with you, but I'm just I'm not here for news. I just wondered if you watched it. Or not.
No, I watched a little clips, but I wasn't going to waste.
You know
my
what I
time
did?
with it.
I watched all of 60 Minutes last night because I mistakenly thought that interview was going to be on 60 Minutes, right? And all I learned in that hour of my life is I never want to fly Allegiant Airlines again. Holy smokes! Yeah. I don't know if you've seen that or not, or seen any of the news out today, but that was pretty frightening statistics and everything pertinent to Allegiant Airlines.
There are a lot of airlines
Scary.
that we need to be very concerned
No,
about.
but that one in particular.
Well, sure, but
do a
you're-
fact check on that.
You remember
stuff.
the whole United Airlines with them doing crazy stuff? I mean, I saw actually on my Facebook feed the pop up about, this happened 1 year ago today, and it was all the memes of making fun of United Airlines for beating people up on the airlines.
Oh, that's
for
all.
dragging them off. I mean, but
it's
come
one thing
on.
to get beaten up. I mean, you got a chance of walking away from that.
Yeah, but not by a stupid little Prius that runs you off the road.
There you go. All right,
Yeah.
I better get into the news.
There you go.
But
That's
anyway.
that's we can call it news or three.
Hey, Andy, happy Monday.
That's the
Happy
news.
Monday. There it is, our little venting session of the morning. What do you want to vent about? You can hear about it right here, 316-721-8255. I want to play some of the clips. I've been saying that I was going to, and we haven't had a chance to do so yet. But on Friday, in Atchison, Kansas, there was the Republican governor's debate, and it really got heated for a while. For the first time, we really saw a little bit of a division. We saw a little bit of heatedness with people starting to go after one another, and we saw a big division, and the biggest issue that came out of it was out of education, which I don't know if necessarily surprising, but it all started with the bill that's floating around the legislature right now with the $500+ million in educational funding that Governor Collier said that he would be very proud to sign because he sees it as a happy medium between what we've been doing and what we were trying to work towards and what they wanted, what we wanted, and being able to hold some certain agencies accountable for education, the graduation rates and the test scores and so on and so forth. And he's very happy about it.
Out of 8 kids do not graduate from high school. That has to stop. And so what we're doing is we're actually putting principles to work. What I learned from President Ronald Reagan is that you present a framework and you get results, and you demand results, and you work with everybody to do that, to get common ground. And so I spoke at a joint session of the Kansas legislature. And in that joint session, I said, we need to keep our schools open. We need to have outcomes in this. We need to make sure that we get the money into the classroom, and we have to respect local control for every community. So you know what? We have passed a bill, and it was difficult. But here is what it did, is for the first time, we actually have outcomes, and that it demands that the accreditation of the schools are going to be maintained, and that it depends on those outcomes. Things like improving how we deal with kindergarten reading. How do we perform when we get out of school? How do we perform in different grade levels as we go on? That's important. That accountability has to happen there. We have to reform our schools, and you need to empower parents and teachers and the local communities to do that. And I've been going around the state listening to folks. And, we have a program right now that has just started. I've been to several different schools where they are reinventing the school. Everything from when the clock strikes and when they start to what the subject is, how the kids move around. It is completely different. And what's most important is it's focused on outcomes and the jobs of the future that we need here in Kansas. That's what we need to do. We need to focus on them. And as your governor, that's what I have started doing. I insisted on outcomes. We got them, and I am proudly going to sign a bill that puts more money into the classroom and actually makes sure that we have outcomes, that ensures that parents are in control and make sure that our businesses have the workforce and that our kids have their future right here in Kansas.
All right, that was Governor Collier at the debate on Friday, and he makes it sound really positive. Now, look, I agree with him with a lot of what he had to say. I agree that we need to have the accountability. I agree that we can't have 1 out of 8 students not graduating high school. I agree that we need to focus on the teachers. I agree we need to focus on the classroom. I agree we need to focus on the students. We can do all of that, though, without the additional money. If we want to look at the study that just came out, the study that we spent $230-some-odd million on for this individual or these groups, this group to be able to study and see where we're at with the money that we raised at last year. Remember, we just spent an additional $300 million in increased spending over the next 2 years that started this year. It really started the last fall for this last school year. It says that with that amount of money, with what we're spending currently, we should be at a 92-93% graduation rate, and we're not. So that right there, that fact by itself says that no matter how much more money you sink into it, it's not going to fix it unless we're just literally throwing money away, because we can fine-tune the system, we can make it a little more efficient, and we can make the graduation rates go up without spending another dime. We have to appropriate the money, not just throw money at the system. So I agree with Governor Collier. I agree with what he wants to do with trying to end this litigation. I agree with what he wants to do with trying to focus on actual standards. We're not going to do it with more money. I wish we could do line-by-line vetoing here in the state of Kansas. I wish that the governor was able to do a line-by-line veto and say, you know what, I agree, let's set the standard here. I agree, let's set a curriculum here. I agree, let's set a standard here. I agree, let's actually hold some accountability here. And we're going to do all this, yay. But when it comes to the bill part where it says we're going to add more money into it, we're going to veto that line because we're not going to raise a single penny in additional spending. End of story. And I wish we could do that. But we can't. So the question really comes down to, will this bill fix the educational system to where we don't have to deal with it again? Or will it do nothing more than throw money at it to where they can start new litigation after this is resolved? Because you know that they're going to bring it up again. They're going to bring it up and say, well, you know what? Yeah, we're working on the way up, but we need more money. So we're going to revisit. We're going to go back to court again. The Supreme Court obviously is not going to come back and say, yeah, that's good. Because why not? Alan Roop said we need $600 million. The study said we needed $2 billion. This one's only $500 million. So we're at least $200 million short, but they're going to push for whatever they want to. Now, being accrued and accumulated year over year, it is closer to $1 billion plus. But they're not going to look at that. They're going to look at it and say, look, we did $500 plus million. We need close to at least $600 million, if not more. So, yeah, and what they're going to do is they're going to come back and say, again, it's inadequate. It's inadequate and we need more funding. And it's not going to solve anything. Yeah, we may hold them accountable. Yeah, we may start putting some standards on there. That's great. But the fact that there's money involved in it means that no matter what else is in there that's positive, really means that at the end of the day, it wasn't the certain dollar amount that the other side wanted, and that they're going to be able to come back and say, yeah, it's not enough yet because they didn't meet the standard that we recommended. So the Supreme Court's going to look at it and just say, quote, check, inadequate, try all over again. So then we just dumped in $300 million starting this year and next year. Then we just did $500+ million over the next 5 years. That's already close to $800 million. Let's say $1 billion. And then they're going to come back and say inadequate. And the next year, we get to do it all over again for another, $200, $300, $400, $500 million, maybe another $1 billion. And poof, voila, look at that. Now we're at the $2 billion increase that they wanted. The money adds up every single year, and we seem to forget about what happened last year because now we're looking at a clean slate, and we got to build on top of that for the new money because we never have enough, right? It will never end. The only way it will end, the one and only way it'll end, is for them to come back and say, let's put some requirements on, let's fix the suitable, let's do this, let's do that, but we're not going to raise a penny in additional funding for education. Zero, zilch, nada. And if you don't like that, try and shut down the schools. Try and shut down the schools. You can't do it. You cannot bully the state treasurer to not sign the checks. You cannot tell the administration to shut down the schools because there's no need, because they have the money. And, oh, by the way, you want to use the National Guard maybe? Go ahead and try that and see how that works out politically for you. And if the only way you can do it is to rally the teachers to try and walk out, and then guess what? You're going to get just as much productivity as what you saw in Oklahoma over the last 2 weeks, where you shut down the schools, great. The teachers were protesting, great. Did you get anything? No. They walked to school today with their tails tucked behind the tails tucked down, and they focused on, they said they're holding their heads high, but they're going to be focusing on the elections coming up in November. They didn't win anything. They shut down the school for 2 weeks, and they felt good about themselves rallying and singing and chanting outside the Capitol building for 2 weeks, but did they do anything? No. Is that what we're really about here in Kansas? Because I thought we were about the children. I thought we were about them getting an education. The best quote, I got to hand it to Chris Kobach, the quote of the night on Friday was him describing that scenario exactly.
But I just heard that, we should just work and build consensus, and eventually we'll solve the problem. Look, those other governors tried to build consensus. They tried to convince people that we were already spending enough. That doesn't change the mindset of the plaintiffs. You've got to understand, from a lawyer's perspective, they have an endless supply of plaintiffs. This is not a class action suit where when one suit ends, the whole fight ends. There's another set of plaintiffs ready to file suit the next day. So if you pay a king's ransom, which over $500 million is a king's ransom, you are not going to solve the problem. The next day, another lawsuit will be filed demanding another king's ransom. You can't live in a fantasy world where if we just keep paying, we just keep coughing up the money, then sooner or later everybody's going to say there's enough. No, the plaintiffs will never say there's enough.
And that's what Alan Roop's doing, and I have to agree with that. I agree with Governor Collier and the fact that we need to set the standards. And I love the fact that he wants to work on that and try and end this, but throwing more money at it only encourages them to try this all over again because they'll always find a way to where the standards aren't good enough, the quality's not high enough, and the funding is just not where it needs to be. Let's go to the phones, get your thoughts on this. 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
Doug.
Hey, good morning, Doug. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I need some more therapy.
Go for it. What do you got?
Oh, well, y'all talking about funding the schools. And there's not adequate enough money to do what you want to do with the schools.
Sure.
And take them where we need to take them so our kids are educated. And I'm wondering if you can tell me what teachers make nowadays.
Well, it varies. I'd say here in Kansas, what's the average salary for teachers? Anywhere from $35,000 to $40,000, maybe 45-ish on the high end.
And I mean, like a monthly pay type.
Well, I mean, you could break it down. I mean, let me bring up the calculator here. I mean, $36,000 before taxes. You're really looking at about $3,000 a month.
Yeah, well, I'm a disabled vet, and I live on $1,100 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to budget it pretty tight, to get by each month.
Sure.
I don't have a lot of extras, like I don't have kids. Not that I have pets.
Sure.
Feed and stuff. But I live on $1,100 a month. If I had $3,000 a month, I wouldn't know what to do with that money.
Well, and now look,
real, after living like this for 5 years, every month.
Well, sure, and you've kind of set a standard of what you can actually live off of with that. Now, and look, I'm all for giving teachers more salary hikes because they do a lot. I mean, they're educating the young generation.
They have a lot to do. They have
absolutely
car insurance. They've got kids. I understand all that, and I'm not against giving them more money either. What I'm trying to get to here is that we have a cash cow that in marijuana. Legalizing marijuana
we could have more money than the schools could spend in if they would just do that. So I'm the tax that you could make off the sales of marijuana in the state. Look at Colorado and the rest of them. It's a no-brainer.
Well, let's stop right there for a second, because I've not been an advocate of legalizing marijuana, and there's two reasons why. Number one, I came from Colorado when I saw it, and you're right, they bring in a lot of revenue, but
what we're talking about here is revenue. That's what we need.
But having more money go into the government, is that necessarily a good thing? Colorado is just in much of a financial difficulty as we are, because they didn't use the money to spend it wisely. They ended up spending the money like government usually likes to do.
That's why I started with budgeting. You know, if you do your budgeting right, like I do, I can live on $1,100 a month.
Sure.
If you don't, if you make one mistake, you spend $1-2 extra off on something else that's not in the budget, then I'm broke before the end of the month.
Well, yeah, and that's the way the government
it's all
runs.
Budgeting.
Well, yeah, and the government does budgeting very, very poorly. The second question that I have to ask with marijuana, though, isn't it, and I guess you could call it on the ethics side of it, a little hypocritical to tell the kids not to do drugs, but the way that they're getting the money into their education system is by people buying drugs? I mean, isn't that kind of a hypocritical, ethical code of where the tax money is going?
Okay, well, how about let's talk ethical then. Is it ethical to let all that money go to the cartels instead of shutting their business down by taking their money away from them? If they're not able to make any money with that, then they're not going to sell that. They're going to go do something else. And the only way to shut them down is to take their finances, just like we did with the gangsters and the mobs. We hit them with tax evasion and took their finances, and it stopped. Well, it didn't stop it, but you know what I mean.
It didn't stop the drug cartels in Colorado.
No.
They're still running rampant.
No, I'm talking about the big cartels from
the big. Well, I mean, if we did it nationally, then we may have a different
finances away from them. They're not going to be able to operate. Is what I'm trying to say.
Well,
but anyway,
yeah,
it's the food for thought. We have that cash cow that we could help fund our schools with, and to me, that's kind of a no-brainer. But thank you for the therapy.
Hey, Doug, I appreciate the call, my friend, very much so. I would say that we don't need the cash cow right now because we are already adequately funding our schools. It's just going to the wrong places. And we've said that many times before, is that right now we need to focus on the money going towards, or the focus of the money going towards the local school boards and their appropriation of the money, as opposed to just saying that we need more money in there and where we're going to find the revenue for it. We don't need any more money. We don't need any more. They're sitting on hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue right now that they're sitting on operational cash reserves that the district's just sitting on, not touching, while they're saying that they don't have enough money to give to the teachers when it comes to the stuff. We don't need the cash reserve. Now, if we're looking at the economy as a whole and other industries to try and improve, then we can go down the road of the marijuana and agricultural hemp and whatever else we want to talk about. But when it comes to education itself, we don't need any more money. It's already 54% of our entire state budget. Got to take a break. The phones are lighting up. Stay here. We'll get to you as soon as we come back.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
I gave out what I thought was the annual average for teacher salaries in the state of Kansas, and apparently I was a lot lower. I had a lot of messages over the break and during that last segment talking about the teacher salary wages, which again, I'm all for raising the teacher salaries, as you know, but according to teachingdegree.org for the state of Kansas, the annual mean wage is $40,000, but many go up to anywhere between $40,000 and $70,000. The average overall, from what it looks like, is closer to about $55,000 a year for a teacher. So not as bad as what we initially thought. Now, do we need to raise some of those up? Sure, I'm all for raising them up. Sure, I'm all for actually taking care of many of them and being able to raise some of those up, but not nearly as bad, and not as bad as what they are in Oklahoma. Which is why if we rally and we see a lot of the teachers rise up and walk out of the schools to protest, then we know that there's a little bit more of a political agenda there than there is actually, because they're not able to actually survive. We'll talk about that and more coming up. Alan Cobb, president of the Chamber of Commerce for the state of Kansas, joining us when we come back in hour number 3. This is The Voice of Reason on a Monday morning. Lots more to get to. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
The government is nothing more in this situation than the big bad wolf in the cloak of a sheep, trying to look like the innocent little grandmother, trying to look like the innocent little Red Riding Hood when she knocks on the door the first time to intrude into the house to eat the grandmother. The government is the dangerous one in this situation, and we're allowing them to investigate Facebook for things that the private market can solve itself in the private sector.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 3, the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610, and across the entire Mid-America Network on Facebook Live, on the interweb, however you may be listening. Welcome aboard. It is it's a Monday. It's time to get you pumped up, set the tone, get you excited for not just today, but for the entire week. Why? Because we love to do so. It's a Monday. Let's get ready to go right here on the Voice of Reason.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, you're more than welcome to do so. I knew I'd get people riled up about that marijuana thing. That's not really where I wanted to go with the marijuana discussion, but it always seems to pop up on there. And the cash cow that we need for education, the fact is that we don't need a cash cow for education. Maybe we do for other industries in the state, or for economic growth, or for industry, or whatever the case is, diversity. Maybe, and I support the agricultural hemp sort of thing, but I knew that they were going to go, people get riled up about the marijuana thing. I appreciate the call very much, Doug, and it brought up some really great points. I want to shift gears a little bit to our next guest that I am excited to talk about, with the funding, with the education, with economic growth that we're seeing in the state, and what we can do to see the economy grow the way that we need to. He's president of the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Alan Cobb, back with us. Alan, what's happening, my friend? Alan, are you there, sir?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I had you on mute.
Hey,
enjoying life. How about you?
Oh, man, we're living the dream. I appreciate you coming on. It's been a little bit since we chatted.
It has been. I can't even remember. Maybe it was in January.
Yeah, we're January, right before the session, I think, was when we talked about it. And really, what we had talked about then is, it's kind of funny because we're really talking about the same thing here. The one big issue, the one big agenda that we are focused on in the state legislature is, of course, the educational finance. I mean, other than that, waiting for the research and now writing the legislation, have we really done anything of substance the rest of this session?
Well, we have. Now, there's a lot of it will be finalized in the veto session. Things got kind of hung up at the late, but I know from a chamber's perspective, there's some stuff that's going to sound very boring, but some asbestos liability reform, some other courtroom liability reform, legal reform. We made some progress on expensing, for small businesses being able to expense their capital investments as opposed to just having to depreciate those over time. And we have a regulatory reform bill that should get passed, that essentially the shortcut would be it gives the legislative branch a veto rights or involvement, some stake in the game for executive branch regulations. And so I think that's a good thing, whether you have a Democrat, Republican president, doesn't matter, whether you have a good governor or bad governor, you got at least the legislature will have some involvement in the reg process. Because what happens is the legislature passes a broad law that allows the executive branch to promulgate rules and regs. And frequently, those rules and regs at the federal or state level won't exactly follow the intent of the legislature. And can be a difficult process to go back and redo some of those regs. So this is something that Scott Walker did in Wisconsin, had bipartisan support in the House, 90 votes in the House, and we should be able to. So we have some of this progress. Are those things signed yet? No, but I'm pretty sure they will be. So a few things. It's just been kind of dominated by the delay, the slowdown of everybody sitting around and waiting on what the Supreme Court may or may not do, what the school studies may or may not say, et cetera.
Sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. First off, your thoughts on the study that came out? We spent, what was it, $200+ million on a study to be able to look and see the adequacy of where we're at right now. It came back with what I had heard of from some different legislators about different faulty numbers that were in the study, about saying that with the current spending level we're at, we should have a close to like a 92-93% graduation rate. But then on the other side, turned around and said, yeah, but you really need to increase your spending by close to $2 billion.
Well, I think the accuracy, there were some numbers transposed, some basic stuff that looks like they were literally Excel spreadsheet problems. Well, then that doesn't exactly give you confidence in the entire study. But instead, look, studies are important. It's good for folks to go in and take a hard look and provide some detail, maybe some objectivity that doesn't always happen with the traditional aspect of schools or legislators, but it's just one more thing. It's not definitive. I mean, I don't think we want to start legislating by consultant, which is essentially what some folks who support verbatim what the study says is the legislature should just enact what they said. Well, that's silly. And it's, again, another piece of information the legislature should take into account and look at the veracity, or not the veracity, it wasn't untruthful, but look at the details, the assumptions they made. 95% graduation rates is I think 3 or 4 points higher than anything in the country. And also maybe that's a good goal, maybe it's not. That should be by the purview of the State Board of Education and the legislature, not the Supreme Court, which essentially mandated the study, essentially. And then it certainly shouldn't be up to the consultants. So that's a fairly major, I'm surprised more people aren't talking about it, is to my knowledge, that was not the direction they were given, is figure out how we can fund 95% graduation rates. And that, So I think there's a lot of flaws in our process, but sure, take a look at it, see what we can get out of it. And, but let's be judicious about spending $250,000 on studies would be my lesson out of it.
Well, that's very true. Now that we have this come out, now the proposed bill is close to what, $540 million. And now they're looking at the $80 million error of what's going to be included immediately into that. I supported the state Senate and Susan Weigel when she came out and said that we're not going to even address this until we look at a constitutional amendment. Then they shifted their decision on that a little bit. Your thoughts on what should be the priority first? Should it be the educational finance bill, or should it be addressing the constitutional amendment before we even look at the finance bill?
Well, ideally, it would be the constitutional amendment, but if that's not where the votes are, that's not where the votes are. We have to be, I guess, practical or pragmatic where the actual votes are, and also what motivates folks. I think some of the maybe the desires about kind of forcing some folks' hands, twisting arms in the constitutional amendment, certainly understand that and have done some of that myself, but it seems not to have worked, which is not a problem. Then you change strategy and you move forward. But again, part of the problem, of course, is that what's driving all of this is a Supreme Court, a non-elected branch of government, forcing these spending decisions. And it's so silly when folks say, well, they're not appropriating money. Yeah, they are. I mean, that's exactly what they're doing. And they're forcing this discussion on the legislature. And we wouldn't be having it but for the Supreme Court. So I think, but we do have the Supreme Court ruling. Who knows what will the Supreme Court will accept? Would they have accepted the Senate version? Who knows? Will they accept the House version? Who knows? My point is we shouldn't have to be asking ourselves these questions. We shouldn't have to wonder what the Supreme Court will accept on funding levels or not. It's a problem.
Exactly. And that's exactly, I mean, right now we are pandering to be, I mean, we're the scared children going back to the parents and saying, okay, what are you going to accept with the quality of standards of what I'm going to have here? Are you going to accept this or that when we shouldn't be in that position in the first place? And we need to draw that line. I heard a lot of the comments from the governor's debate on Friday, and Governor Collier made some really great points about setting standards for the teachers and standards for the classroom and standards for this and that and the other, so that way we can get the graduation rate to where we need to be, which is fantastic. But at the same time, by giving them more money only feeds the pig and encourages that mentality of saying, hey, we're never going to solve this. And all they have to do is come back and say, check, not suitable. Let's try again. And then all of it that we've given, it goes out of the window. We start from scratch at the new level playing field, and then they advocate for more money, and it's a never-ending cycle.
Agree. And I've parent with 3 kids who graduated public schools in Topeka. I graduated public schools in Wichita. I honestly can't say for certain whether we need more money in K-12 or not, because we don't have substantive, open-minded discussions about it. It's adversarial. conversations, and we don't have substantive conversations between business owners, teachers, parents, administrators, superintendents, because you need to have good dialogue, sitting across the table, discussing things. You can't have those with a judicial branch, and that's what's driving our education policy. And I think that until we do that, we're going to be in this endless cycle. And I think we have some challenges with our public schools and some of the standards and results. We should take a hard look at that. Let's be objective about them. I think that we need to, public schools, of course, should be improved. I don't think anybody disagrees with that.
Sure.
And the question is, how do we best go about that? And courtrooms is simply not the best way.
Realistically, with the makeup of our state legislature right now, do you think that we can actually get a constitutional amendment done this year? Or obviously we need to focus on the elections in November as well, but do you think that with the makeup that they will be able to pass a constitutional amendment and get it signed before the end of the session?
I think it's possible. I mean, it's a steep climb. Partly depends on what the Supreme Court does. Different political analysis say it'll help the constitutional amendment if the Supreme Court accepts the school finance package, or if they reject it. The other kind of wonkish thing is, do they accept the finance package but then retain jurisdiction, essentially meaning we're over for now, but we're going to keep an eye on you, which is, I think, demonstrative of the problem, that we shouldn't have the Supreme Court ruling over the 15 words in the Constitution about the state shall make suitable provision for the financing of education. We've had 35, 40 years of litigation based on those 15 years, and it defies common sense.
Right. No, absolutely. We're talking with Alan Cobb, president of Kansas Chamber of Commerce. Let's shift gears a little bit to the actual economy of the state of Kansas. We've seen 10 months in a row now to where the media is all hyped up and excited and giddy. The fact that we've had revenues above projections month over month for 10 months straight now. The Democrats, of course, saying that it's because of the tax increases they did. Some Republicans saying it's because of the Trump tax cuts that we did and the just the growth of the economy nationally that we're starting to get the effects of. What's your thoughts on the economy? Or is it just the fact that maybe we haven't altered the formula for projections on our monthly revenues for the state, and maybe we're not seeing the economy grow quite as we need to yet?
I think it's all of those. I don't know. I'm not an expert on the format in which the estimating crew does their estimating. They clearly have gotten a little more conservative, because that's part of the political dynamic of the Brown Act tax cuts. Well, it wasn't necessarily the dollars that came in, but it was that they kept missing the estimates, which is a whole another part of it. But I think the economy that's grown nationwide, I mean, ultimately we're one of 50 states of the U.S., so we do go up and down with the U.S. economy. I think, of course, tax increases are going to increase tax revenue. I mean, maybe not as much as they thought, but Kansas generally remains a slow growth state, and I think that's something that the private sector is concerned with, and everybody should be concerned with. The rising tide does lift all boats, maybe not always equally, and let's take a hard look about how we do that. But Kansas, slow economic growth state, has been for decades. It wasn't just it's over Democratic governors, Republican governors, moderates, conservatives, whatever. And I don't know that we've taken a real hard look at what's driving the economy and what the state can change on the policy side since the mid '80s in any comprehensive way.
Sure.
And I will give Governor Brownback credit. He was the first governor I'm recalling that specifically was discussing what do we need to do to increase our rates of economic growth. And we did have a couple of years during the Brownback terms where our per capita income was above the national average. Usually we're below. We're right at close to the national average now, but there are some signs that are mixed about the Kansas economy. So we'll see. I think it's too early to make a whole lot of conclusions. But of course, tax increases increase tax.
Oh, exactly.
Well, that also means money out of the taxpayers' pockets, and the question is the government spending it in the appropriate way better than the private sector?
Oh, and that's what it is. And I'm concerned about the fact that they hype it up and say, oh, look at this. We increased the taxes and therefore the economy raised and everybody's paying more taxes and we're doing great and we're doing so let's go ahead and let's start raising more taxes and a little bit again. And my concern is that the end of this year, they're going to try and squeak through to say that whatever they sign for education or any other spending is going to be done through the growth of the economy and we don't have to raise taxes. After the election, by January next year for the new session, they're going to say, oh, look, we're running into more shortfalls. Guess what? We get to see some more property tax increases or income tax increases or business tax increases or whatever they find, because look at that. It helped the economy last time. Let's do it again.
Yeah, I think that's a fair concern. And I think the other element of all this, of course, is the spending part. And partly because of the Supreme Court decision hovering over all the decision making. Legislature has not done as much as they could on the spending side. It is hard. I mean, the legislature's part-time. You got a $16 billion all funds budget. You have 90 days. How do you really start looking at the efficacy of some of the spending? Some of that certainly falls to the executive branch. And that's another part we don't talk about, is are we spending money in the appropriate ways? Are there things we could rationalize? We could get some efficiencies. And in my opinion, we don't have those kind of substantive conversations either.
Exactly. Alan Cobb, president of the Chamber of Commerce for the state of Kansas. We got about a minute left or so, but your thoughts on just the wrapping up of the session and what else you guys are working on through the chamber to see, hopefully we can start continue to see some economic growth, and maybe we can see an uptick on that this summer.
Yeah, I encourage everybody to go to our Vision 2025 website, ks2025.org, and Kansas Vision 2025. This is the Chamber's effort to address this slow growth. We don't have the answers. What we're doing is exploring those answers. We're focused on 4 areas: talent supply, innovation and entrepreneurship, cost of doing business / competitiveness, and business infrastructure, which is everything from water, electricity, venture capital, and roads, of course. But we're looking at these things and doing some asking some hard questions. We had a vision forum in December. In Wichita, we'll have some more across the state in April and May. So I encourage everybody to go to the website and sign up to get on that list. But also, we do want everybody's feedback. I'd like to hear, and it has been helpful to hear what people think we need to do, the state needs to do to improve itself and start taking up that economic growth curve.
We're on the uptick little by little, my friend. Alan, it's always great to talk to you, my friend. Keep up the great work. We'll get you back on the show again soon.
Great. Thank you.
Hey, always a pleasure there. Alan Cobb, president of the Kansas Chamber of Commerce. We'll open up lines to you when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, 28 minutes past the hour. Thanks again to Alan Cobb, the president of the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, talking about economic growth, the spending, the tax rates. Look, we called it. We called it right here. They're not going to raise your taxes this session. If they do, I'd be very, very shocked. They're going to talk about being able to not have to do that. Maybe they'll try and do a small little one hit and say, oh, it's only a little minor thing. But they're not going to. They're going to wait. They're going to try and get more moderate Republicans, try and get more Democrats elected, try and sway the pendulum of the legislature, which already is a little bit more left-leaning anyways. But they're going to try and do that the best that they can, so that way next year after the election, oh, look, all that economic growth, that evil Trump tax economy, oh, look at this, oh, things aren't growing here in the state of Kansas. We're still feeling the repercussions of the Brownback era. We need to repeal this. We need to repeal that. We need to start raising more taxes all over the place, and we're going to see more tax increases next year, I guarantee you. Today, I know they extended it out one day. Today's the last day, by the way, for you to file your taxes. I want to hear from you. How many of you had to owe the state of Kansas money when you filed this year? Today's the deadline, so hopefully most of you did that. If not, then hello. Might want to get on board with that. So today's the deadline to file. I want to hear from you when we come back. Got to take a bottom of the hour break. When we come back, we'll get your thoughts and calls. It's open lines to you. But how many of you owed the state of Kansas money when you filed? And do you feel good about that to contribute to the system?
Keeping reason in the world of politics.
But if you're really angry, why in the first place are you not frustrated and angry to the fact that you have to spend $250 to $600 of your own cash to be able to provide resources in the classroom?
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Oh, making it happen today. Welcome into the Voice of Reason. Wrapping up the show. Program goes by way too fast, and it's open lines to you for the last half hour. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, I'd love to hear from you today. Facebook Live is up. You can leave a comment there as well if you'd like to do so. I want to remind you again that Friday I will be broadcasting live. I have yet to be in Topeka. I have not been to Topeka yet, and I'm kind of bummed about myself for that. I've been here for how many years and have not been up to Topeka for any type of rally to see the Capitol, to see any of that. But I will be up there on Friday, my very first time, and we'll be broadcasting up there from 6 to 9 for the show. Directly after the show, we'll be doing, I'll be emceeing and hosting the rally, the Second Amendment rally on the Capitol grounds, brought to you by the Kansas State Rifle Association. For your pro Second Amendment, baby, I'll be hosting and emceeing it, and then right afterwards, heading up to Lenexa, and all day Friday and Saturday, be calling in with some updates, doing some reports on social media for you to be able to cover and see the annual Kansas State Rifle Association meeting. We'll be talking to vendors and exhibitors and speakers, and Saturday morning we'll have the annual shootout benefit fundraiser. I'll get some reports on that one. If you want to, $35 tickets. It'll be a lot of fun. You can go to ksraweb.org, ksraweb.org. You can get more information on that, and we do want to thank our sponsors for allowing us to broadcast up there, and that's Jimmy's Egg, Auto Smart, Rob's Gun Tech and Firearms, MJ's Truck Repair and Moundridge, Phil's Coins, Augusta Flight Center, JD Aviation, and, of course, the Kansas State Rifle Association. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I am looking forward to going up to Topeka, especially on 420. I can only imagine what other rallies are going to be happening on 420. Let's go to your phone call, shall we? It's open line to you, 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name? Nope, I guess we lost him. That's all right. Give me a call back. I want to hear from you. It is open lines for this last half hour. Your thoughts on it? We touched on this in the first hour, but according to Yahoo News, Vladimir Putin and the Russians, they are very upset with Donald Trump bombing Syria. Now they have the media saying that Syrian people are very supportive of the Syrian military going against the United States. They're very upset with the military, or with the United States. Russia calling Trump Hitler, and now saying that if we continue on with these crazy things, Russian President Vladimir Putin warned Sunday that further Western attacks on Syria would bring chaos to world affairs, as Washington prepared to increase pressure on Russia with new economic sanctions. Does any of this, in any way, shape, or form, sound like Trump is colluding with Russia? Because I thought Trump was colluding with Russia. Even if you watched the James Comey thing on TV last night with his new book and it's funny how they always give the platform to anybody that has anything bad to say against Trump, or any type of conspiratorial, Trump did a sexual allegation against this person, had an affair with this person, has information on. Do you remember that there was, what country was it? Was it China? About some lady or I don't know, some Asian country where apparently was a prostitute and had slept with Donald Trump and had information on some of the stuff that he's given out. I mean, they go to anybody that will say that they have beef on Trump, and yet it hasn't worked. And in the new book by James Comey, they say that Donald Trump has been colluding with Russia, and Russian agents have been working close with them, and he's working with them very closely, and yada, yada, yada. And it's all bull. Because if that were the case, he probably wouldn't have gone against Russia's terms and gone and bombed Syria. And I don't want to use a personal grudge or an I got you or I told you so when it comes to war, but for the media and for the left-wing progressives that think nothing more than Trump is nothing but a Russian agent colluding with Russia, this goes against their entire agenda. And that's why I said over the weekend, I said, good for Trump. Good for Nikki Haley with the UN. Good for Mike Pompeo if he gets in there to be stern. Good for President Trump. Good for General Mad Dog Mattis. Good for our leadership, and I've never felt safer in this nation than I have in a really long time. Because now I know that we're not going to be bullied by countries, even countries that are other powerhouses and other countries that try and bully us, that try to intimidate us and threaten us. It ain't going to happen. So what do? We bomb Syria and we put economic sanctions on Russia. Good for us. Let's keep it rolling, baby. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
It's Jim.
Jim, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Andy. Hey, when you asked your guest about the amendment, and he said, and Susan Wagle wanted to have it come to a vote, and he said, oh, well, there wouldn't be the votes there. That's not a good answer. They should absolutely come to a vote and expose the people that don't want to go along with it.
Well, that's a really good point. And I asked him, I said, realistically, do we think it's going to go through? And, he said possibly, but it's going to be a very tough one. That
should absolutely happen. Hey, also, Andy, I get to pay $2,400 state this morning.
Oh, you get $2,400 you get to pay to the state.
$2,400, yeah.
Wow, and you feel real nice and warm about that, of the fact that you're really contributing to the teachers.
I don't want to let the state buy, whatever they want to with it.
Well, they're probably going to use it towards going, towards the salary of an administrator. And then they say that you need to pay actually more of it because then you can actually pay for the teacher once they're done with the administrator.
Keep up the good work, Andy.
Hey, appreciate the call, Jim. Thank you much. 31672. $2,500. That's insane. How many of you actually had to owe the state of Kansas money when you filed your taxes? Today's the deadline if you have not done so. $2,500 going towards the government, spending it inadequately, spending it inefficiently, spending it on their own time, just doing whatever because you are the money tree, baby. All they got to do is pluck the tree. All they got to do is send the workers out, probably illegal immigrants, to go and pluck the incomes out of the tree and just pluck the money right off and just stash them and just be able to use whatever they want to with it. They are abusing you because you are the money tree for the state of Kansas. And you know what? You got to pay your fair share, right? You really got to pay your fair share. You're right. We need the constitutional amendment. Is it going to go through this year? My prediction is no. And that's sad. It's pathetic. It's angering, but I do not see it going through. Why? Because we had the same legislature as we did last year, and it didn't go through. It didn't go through. We need individuals that are okay with saying, we need someone to call the bluff. And I like calling the bluffs because that's what I do. But we need someone with the political gonads to really say, we're going to call your bluff. Because when you say you're going to shut down the schools, how are you going to do it? Governor Jeff Collier, I know, has to play nice and kind of walk the line a little bit. And he says, well, we can't have the schools shut down. And that's his number one rule. We don't want the schools shut down. They're not going to shut down. How are they going to shut down? They're going to bully the treasurer? It's an elected official, but not under any of the three branches of government. So it's not like one of the branches can come back and say, we're not going to fund you, baby. Don't you dare sign that check. The only people that can actually shut it down, I guess, would be the state legislature that says they're not going to actually allot the funding to the state treasurer to sign that check. But that's not going to happen. Just imagine if the Democrats tried that. If the Democrats came back and said, yeah, you know what? We are so angry with the way the funding is that we're not going to be able to suffice. We're not going to survive as a school year this year. We're never going to be able to survive this year because we have more money than we've ever had, more cash reserves than we've ever had, more spending than we've ever had. But we're never going to survive because last year, I don't even know how we kept the doors open. We're going to not appropriate money to education so that way the treasurer cannot sign the check for them. Imagine the political repercussions of what would happen with that. They're never going to do that. So the state treasurer is going to continue to sign the check that goes on to the schools. And then the only way the schools are shut down is if they rally the teachers to walk out like they did in Oklahoma. That's it. That's it. When are we going to say enough's enough? We're going to draw the line in the sand. Yeah, let's hold some accountability. Let's hold some standards. Let's try and fix some things internally, which we obviously have to do. We're going to do that. But it's going to consist of not a single penny more until we get things streamlined, until we get the accountability where we need it to be. Then we'll look at it and reassess on where the money is, and maybe we're spending too much, maybe we're not spending enough, but we'll reassess by that point. But it's going to take some time. But I don't think they're willing to do that right now, or else they would have done it last year. The constitutional amendment is going to be very difficult to get through, and I honestly, truly don't think it's going to happen because we don't have enough solid conservatives to go up and actually fight for it. When Republicans are voting against sales tax reductions, they're not willing to stand up to another branch of government. We have the 7th highest sales tax in the entire nation, and all 6 of the states above us are purely fair tax states where they don't have income tax. They're only doing sales taxes. We're doing sales tax and income tax and property tax and everything of the sorts. And we're saying it's not enough and we need more because we have insane amount of spending at the state level and we're unwilling to look at it. We're unwilling to fix it. Not all of them by any means, but many of them. And enough of them to where I don't know if we can see a constitutional amendment go through this year. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones. Good morning. What's your name?
Jordan.
Hey, good morning, Jordan. How are you today?
I'm all right. So this is something totally off topic.
That's all right. Go for it.
It's gay pride season, and I'm a drag performer. But right now, some of the local drag bars are trying to say drag should not be a part of pride because it offends the trans.
Hold on, wait. First off, you'll have to excuse my ignorance. What is a drag performer? What is that the drag where you dress up as the opposite sex?
Yes, it's cross-dressing on stage.
Okay. So you do that, but a lot of the community that's for that doesn't like that now because it's offensive?
Exactly. So the liberal side of this is imploding completely.
That's
so
fantastic.
I am a bisexual woman, but I'm married to a man, so I look straight. And I get all sorts of backlash for that as well, despite being their strongest ally as a drag performer. So they're screaming, allies, 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 and now they're shaming anybody who's not trans, who's not severely gay.
Well, it is funny that, and you're right, I did see a story a while ago about that, where they are imploding from inside because they've gone so far that now the things that they find offensive, that they've blamed conservatives for a long time, now they're finding within their own side, because if you are someone who dresses like the opposite sex as the cross-dressing, then that's offensive to those that are actually that sex that may take offense to it. So I don't know where you go from there. I mean, where does the LGBTQ whatever community go after that by saying that even the people that support that type of behavior is now offensive? I don't know where you go from there.
I don't think we know either, because right now my home bar is completely imploding from exactly this type of drama.
Wow. Now, you mentioned that it's coming up to that season. Is there, again, forgive me for the ignorance because I don't know anything about this, but is there a certain time of year where I know that, I guess around, June-ish is like the gay pride parades and that sort of thing? So is that usually
June
when?
June is Pride Month.
June is Pride Month, okay.
Hutchinson, Salina are working their benefit shows right now. Wichita will have Pride in the last week of May.
So what will they do without individuals that do the drag?
They're just thinking of completely cutting off that whole leg, which is kind of how the LGBT movement even started, because drag was at least seen as art and not just a psychotic lifestyle back in the 60s, 70s.
Very interesting. So now they're
basically severing the people who started the movement because they've gone so far through progress that they're imploding.
What's been the response from the community, the people that usually dress up in drag? I mean, you personally, since you do that, are you upset with that choice? I mean, are you still going to support the rallies?
We're all very angry. Almost any high-level drag performer in this town has said something about it.
Wow.
Like, this is a little crazy. Can we just chill? I'm not sure which pride, but one of those three big pride movements just released their terms and conditions for their show and is thinking of cutting drag.
Wow. And I'm sure that cuts a lot of people from actually being able to want to or even be able to participate in the parades, right?
Exactly, because now all these straight women come to watch the drag performers. This is how you gain allies who aren't necessarily into the LGBT sphere yet.
Very interesting.
And they're cutting off their ally.
Wow, the internal battle, which I never thought I would see between the LGBTQ community. Jordan, I appreciate the update on that. That's it's fascinating to hear the internal bickering. I mean, is there any talks of resolving that? I mean, will they start to allow it, or is it just too offensive for some to where the fringe may not want to show up to that?
At this point, this is really new information, and we as a drag community are still working out the kinks.
Very interesting.
This all came up like in the last 48 hours.
Just within the last couple of days. So this is big. This is new news.
Yeah, this is big new news to most of us.
Wow. Well, Jordan, keep us surprised on that one. I appreciate calling in and giving us the lowdown on that. A whole new realm that I never even followed at all, so I had no idea. So that's big. The internal LGBTQ community already going after each other because now drag is offensive to people that actually may be that gender or choose to change to that gender. Now the drag is offensive to them, upsetting a lot of the base of the LGBTQ community. Very interesting. Had no idea. Got to take a break. 10 minutes at the top of the hour. You learn something new every day. Let me tell you something. And could that be the riff as we're seeing the umbrella crack for the Republicans, the umbrella crack of the two divisiveness under the Democrats, and now we're seeing that even within that community there. Very interesting. Have to ponder that one for a while. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
I'm starting to realize that the progressives on the left side of the aisle, and we've been saying this for a while, they're becoming more and more and more fringe to the extreme to where they're going to lose their base. And that falls right into the same category with what we just heard with that last caller with Jordan, with the LGBTQ community even going so far to the fringe that it's losing its base. Look, the Democrats are not prepared to embrace full-on socialism. They've wanted to, they've loved to, and they've done it behind the scenes, but openly, Openly, they're not ready for it yet. And Bernie Sanders kind of started that rift to where some of the extreme, more staunch advocates for it are the ones ready to go and ready to make it happen, when the mainstream Democrats not ready to embrace socialism full on with the full out view in public. They're not ready. It's too extreme to say that we're going to tax all the evil, terrible rich people, that we're going to redistribute wealth, that we're going to have a socialized healthcare system, that we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I mean, it's too extreme, but yet that's the rift that caused the Democrats right now between the mainstream Hillary Clinton establishment-ites and the Bernie Sanders socialist-ites. And they say because they want to change, they want to get rid of the establishment, but you create a bigger establishment by having a utilitarian government control everything with socialism, but they don't see that. They use it as we want to change. But the fringe out there is not going to win. The fringe never works. The fringe never happens. I am a staunch conservative. I am a constitutional conservative, but also I understand that if you just say that, I mean, you can say it all you want, but if you advocate for just pure conservatism all the time, then you never gain anything. I want that, but you have to do it in chips, a little by little by little by little. And Democrats used to be very good at that. I mean, look at FDR. He said, yeah, you know what? We start getting the people into administrations. You start getting the bureaucracy going. You get the heads of the bureaucracy. You get the Supreme Courts. You get all these people in. So when you're out of power, then they continue to advance your agenda, and it happens 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 years down the road. That's their goal, and that's what they've done for a long time. Conservatives, we don't. We want it right now, baby. We want the change right now. We want the reform right now. And that sounds great, but at the same time, sometimes we harm our cause more than we help our cause, and we can't allow that to happen. The LGBTQ community, they're hurting their cause because apparently they're not even accepting the individuals that support the cause that dress up in drag of the opposite sex to encourage people to feel comfortable doing such things. They're hurting their base. We're seeing progressivism, as they like to say, they like to progress. They like to progress in a certain way. They're progressing too fast. And sometimes when you build the house on top of an unstable structure or a foundation, then you collapse because you don't have that structural foundation, and you don't have the foundation in mind as of right now. And that happens with any type of politics. If you build the house too fast without making sure the foundation's set, you're going to crumble. And that's what's happened with the Democrats. That's what's happened with many Republicans. And that's now what's happening with some of these certain sect organizations as well. Very interesting to follow. This is your show, as always. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Have a great Monday, everybody. This is The Voice of Reason.